folks, back here with our final PTI segment here of the show. Looking across at Bar Louis here on a Sunday night. The Caps and the Sabres about to drop the puck right now. Early scores right now. Ottawa beating the Columbus Blue Jackets 1-0, if I recall correctly. The score up there. The Bruins beating whoever they're playing, one I think as well too. As Jason and I are sitting here for our final segment as well too. It's the Panthers. They're losing to the Boston Bruins.
Tim Thomas, formerly of the Boston Bruins, in net for the Florida.
The crazy guy, Tim Thomas.
Yeah.
The crazy guy. You know.
Some may call him crazy. I don't know.
All right, back
you
here.
You gotta be a little crazy to be a goaltender.
That is
general,
true,
right?
and the case in point right there on your screen right there. Case in point right there. They say a picture says 1,000 words. In this case, a picture says 1,000,000 words. In this case.
I can't deny the madness. I can only embrace it.
All right, folks. One last thing. Our PTS. We'll talk about a ruling we had made this week actually that I want to go over as well too. So our PTI segment is going to be about our sportsmanship point system that we have in DCHL. Now, about 6 or 7 seasons ago, the Board of Governors at that time said, you know what? We're tired of playing against players who complain too much, who don't make the games fun, who complain and moan a lot, and we want to penalize somehow, some way. So the Board of Governors came up with what they call soccer. I believe it's a soccer rule, if I recall correctly. This is a European soccer
really
rule.
Follow soccer, so I don't know.
I'm told it's a European soccer rule where basically teams get a point in the standings for sportsmanship. If you don't do well, you don't get that point, or you get negative point if you don't really do well. DCHL, BOG at that time approved the rule. It was a great rule in place because, you know, players, it's human nature. They get out of control. They forget that it's a recreational league. It's a fun league. They think they're playing in the NHL or there's some superstar pro player, and what's right is right, and they have the God Almighty on their hand out there, and they argue to death this case, which unfortunately is detrimental to the league and players in general. So the rule was modified. I think 2 seasons back, actually. Instead of giving away free points, which we did, for behaving, the rule was changed to why give away free points? Instead, we assume you're going to behave and give no points for that, but if you misbehave, we'll take a point away. Same rule, same concept, except the math's different. Instead of giving you a free bonus point for behaving, you take away a point for not behaving. Same ideology. Yeah. So this particular week, we had a situation where between 2 teams, we won't mention the team's name right now, a player consistently 4 or 5 times throughout the game showed poor sportsmanship. Whether it's taunting, whether it's arguing beyond excessive for what a player should argue for. And keep in mind, you can't argue with a call, judgment call in the first place, and you can't even argue it unless you're a captain or assistant captain, too. So in this case, there was documentation of at least 4 or 5 cases where a player exceeded the normal code of conduct that we allow for a player to argue calls, and we had a panel meeting between the 2 scorers and the officials of the game, reviewed all the evidence and information at the time, and we voted unanimously 4-0 to take away a sportsmanship point from the team in this case. Now, I understand the fact the team did their best to control the player. We understand that, we appreciate that, we applaud that, we love that. But the bottom line is the player was put on that team by that team in general. So they have the opportunity to take the player on the line if they want to. They chose not to. As a result, the rule says the team is penalized and they lost 1 point in the standings as a result out there. Jason, your thoughts on that rule? Your thoughts on what may have happened out there, in generality speaking out there, and your opinion in general?
I think the key takeaway from all this is you have to know your players, and you have to know how to control your players. And the team in particular that we're talking about did everything they could to control this player and to calm them down and to let it go, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if a player continues to act the way that this particular person acted, you're going to cost your team points. I think the lesson we learned from all this is just don't argue, don't taunt, don't. It's a game, guys.
It's a recreational league, guys. It's not a professional league.
We all want to win.
Absolutely.
But to me, having fun should be first and foremost.
Absolutely.
What it's all about. Now, if you're going to argue, again, a captain or assistant captain should be the only 2 people arguing.
Agreed.
And you know, I mean, if there's an initial outburst, I've been guilty of this too. if there's an initial outburst of, that was a BS call or enforce it consistently or something like that, initial outburst, fine. It happens. The refs aren't, I don't think normally, they're not going to call that.
Well, but happened to you and me.
Yeah,
right after your game.
Yeah.
Happened to Jason. Jason did not call I made out there. Again, Jason had an initial outburst. I let him vent for about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But to Jason's credit, that was over.
Right.
Between periods, he got talked about it. We still disagreed on the call, but it was over.
Yeah.
It did not continue.
Initial outburst, fine. Let it go. If you still have an issue,
intermission. Exactly.
If you're not a captain, go to your captain or assistant captain and say,
follow
this
protocol.
is my issue. Please discuss it with the refs. That's what again, me and you did. I still had an issue with the call. I went to you. We had a discussion. We still didn't agree.
But we moved on.
Exactly. After that, it's done. So if you're going to argue a call, it has to be at the appropriate time and by the appropriate person. And even if those two things are still matching up, if you're still continuing to hold on to that call, complaining from the bench, complaining well after the fact, 1 or 2 periods after it had already happened, that's grounds for the referees to make a decision on if you're going to be penalized or for those involved in making the disciplinary decisions to take away a point from your team. So, again, will judgment calls, will they happen?
Absolutely.
That you disagree with? Absolutely. That will happen every game we have this season. Will calls be made that you fundamentally disagree with and you're just upset? Absolutely. But there's a time and a place and there's a procedure to follow. And when you don't follow that procedure and when you continue to denigrate other players because of it, you're going to get penalized, not just as a player, but as your team. And this should, at the end of the day, be a team sport. And
Absolutely.
That's what it should come down to. As pissed as I am about a certain call, myself personally, I don't want to hurt my team. So I'll suck it up. I'll maybe bitch to my team afterward, excuse my language, but, I might, argue at the bar about it and complain about it afterwards.
Correct.
But you don't want to argue that during the game.
And you know what? Great points here, Jason. Number one point is, first of all, you're right. When you consistently argue a call or show a pattern, and normally our referees will let you go on one call or two, but when you go 3 or 4 or 5 times about different calls, it's a pattern of just arguing in general, complaining in general, which we don't like seeing out there. And when you start complaining like that, what it does, it creates a negative environment for the players and for the teams. You actually create a situation where other teams get upset at you, and then the teams create acrimony as well too. It creates an unsafe environment to play in. So by you prolonging the issue overall and complaining, not only is it poor sportsmanship, but it makes a very dangerous situation to play in and to referee in, number one. And number two as well too. As you said earlier, the penalty in this case is the team because, number one, how will the team learn unless they realize this player is costing us points? Maybe we should do a better job, either not even A, control the player, or B, not have him play for us, because the ultimate decision on who plays for your team is your team, not the league. The league can step in and ban a player, and we've done that 6 or 8 times already throughout our history, but it shouldn't fall upon the league. It falls upon the team because the team chose that player. If it's a new player, the league decides one thing. If you brought a team in yourself and you brought those players in there, despite the league's not questionable approval of the player, it's your job to control the player.
You know what you're getting into.
Absolutely, and you were warned before as well too. So I think it's a good point, the fact that the team is still held accountable. And the reason is because now a team will know, oh my God, this player costs the point in standings out there. In the future, he steps out of line, I don't want him on my team. And you know what? That's what the match should be. If you do that again, we don't want you on our team. Bottom line. That's the bottom line.
I think a thing to be aware of too, as a player, is if you've already gotten a couple warnings from the officials, you need to realize that you have a shorter leash than what maybe another player would have.
Absolutely.
The leash gets shorter and shorter. The more you complain, the more you argue, the more you gripe.
Especially if you're a repeat offender of the rule many, many times over as well too.
So I think you need to be aware of that. And I mean, there are certain players in the league, we won't mention who, I think they're on the radar more than other players.
The referees have a list of players to do that, absolutely.
And so you need to be aware of, if you're that type of individual, you really need to be on guard you really need to be on your best behavior. Is that fair to everybody? Is that right? I'm not going to get into that discussion, but basically you need to be aware, everybody needs to be aware that for for every action there's a consequence. And is it worth taking that action when it might hurt, when the consequence might hurt your team? I don't think it is.
Excellent point. And the reason the rule was changed, and this, again, the rule was made by the Board of Governors. These are captains and assistant captains of your team, not made by the league, made by the people who govern the league. The 22 captains, the 2 assistant captains out there, and they all, not this season, but the previous season, all agreed that, hey, because the player only allows the player to be selfish. He said, I got suspended. But if you penalize the team, the player can't be selfish. You know, he's got to realize, oh my God, by me doing what I'm doing, I'm hurting the team. If the player continues to be selfish and only decides to look out for himself, then continue to be that way, and the team will have a pot. Hopefully, with this new rule in place, he'll realize, or he or she will realize the fact, hey, by doing it, I'm hurting my team. I better stop. If I don't care about myself, it's one thing. I better care about the team in general. And that's why the rule was changed. I think it's a great rule. I embrace the rule as well, too. And we don't really, we rarely use the rule. It's the first time we ever used the rule in this place again, because you know what? We give people leeway. We understand, it's competitive, we understand the emotions as well, too. But when a player consistently 3, 4, 5 times goes out of bounds. In this case, it was taunting. The player was taunting a different player, talking to a different player, and kept going after the player in different ways. That crossed the borderline as well too. Verbally, physically, emotionally, psychologically as well too. I thought it was a good call by all 4 people. I voted for the rejection point. I'll be honest with you. I think it's the message out there. Play the game. The rules are there on paper. Everybody's signed away with saying we don't know what the rules are. If you cannot control your emotions, if you cannot understand what the code of conduct is, don't play in our league. Yeah. Bottom line, you know, that's bottom line.
And I think too, there needs to be you need to keep in mind as well. You argue with the refs, or you dispute a call with the refs. That's one thing. But when you go after another player,
exactly, taunting,
that's a completely another avenue, and we don't want to go down that rabbit hole of players hating each other and maybe taking it out physically on the rink. It creates a whole other safety.
Excellent point, Jason.
We don't want to go down that road. So
excellent point.
It's one thing if you argue with the refs and you continue to complain about a call, which again, as we said, you shouldn't do in general. But when you combine that with also taunting another player and kind of goading them into getting more physical with you, then that's when things really cross the line. And I think that was a big part of the impetus on the decision to take away a point from it.
And in this case, to be honest here, the player probably got away with more than the officials saw. The officials are on the ice officiating. In this case, the scorer's testimony came into effect too. There are more things that were said on the bench that the officials did not hear. If they heard it, the player probably would have been ejected from the game. And the player in this case got lucky. If he got ejected, he'd be suspended right now. He's not. But because of the testimony of all 4 of the panel out there, the right call was made out there. And again, guys, it's a rec league. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I love to win. We all have to win out there. But I like to have fun. You take the fun out of the game by arguing. When you argue, you take the fun out of the game out there. Referees do a damn good job in this league. I think it's a very hard game to officiate. But when you start arguing with calls that are judgment calls, or you start taunting players, which is uncalled for, you've way crossed over the line in this case out there. You should be playing rec league if you do with that, bottom line. So whoever the player is, please understand it's about decorum and about culture. Fit in the culture or move on, bottom line. I'll talk and say out this.
So unfortunate that this team loses a point in the standings.
Absolutely.
But hopefully this is a learning experience, not just for them, but for everybody in the league, and that they can move on. And hopefully this player that you know we've all been talking about, hopefully they can control their emotions from here on out, and they can be, you know.
Quick question. 10 seconds less. Yeah. If you're on that team, if you're a team of this player, you just lost a point, how would you feel?
I feel pretty bad.
About the player or about the team?
As a whole. I mean, I think I feel bad about the whole situation, especially because, and again, the team in this situation did everything they could.
Correct.
Short of benching that player, which is probably the only other thing they could have done.
Well, question. question. Could they bench the player? Could they have benched him?
I think so. As a captain,
They have absolutely.
Here's my point. I'm a captain of my own team. If one of my players were acting that way, I would absolutely be like, you're out for the rest of the game.
Jason, excellent point. The one thing a team did not do in this case, they didn't bench him. To me, if they had benched him, this would never got this far out there. So yes, they control the emotion, they try to, but you know what? The ultimate message to the player is, shut up or don't play.
Right.
If you keep talking, don't play. I want you off the team right now.
Right.
They didn't do that, and they deserve to lose the point for not doing that.
Right, but short of that, they did everything they could. They
did,
I mean, they even, I saw them even come up to the scorers and apologize. And
yes.
Say, look, really sorry, all this stuff. So, I hate to see an entire team lose a point over the actions of one player, but at the end of the day, by the letter of the law, by the rule as is written, it's the right call to have been made.
Absolutely, and that's why the rule was written.
Yeah.
To force a team to say, hey, look, we don't want you in our team out there. If you continue doing this, you're hurting us. If you're going to hurt us, we don't want you in our team out there. That's why the rule was written in the first place, is to get people angry at the player and say, look, guys, whoever he or she is, ship up or ship out.
Yeah.
And before the league ships you out, we'll ship you out. Bottom line, so FYI.
So, again, I don't want to hammer on that player or that team too much. We say all that to say this. That is the rule as it is written. Those are the, if you take actions like that, then they will have negative consequences, not just for an individual, but for the team. So everybody, make sure that you're minding your players, and that you're not going over the line as far as arguing, and you're not taunting the players. And if you do that, then there will be no negative loss of points.
Absolutely.
Over those situations.
My one final thought, Jason. There are leagues out there, and it's not a statement on the leagues out there. This league is like a certain culture, and the culture is we're a family. Number one, yeah, we play against each other on a Sunday. We're brothers and sisters going, fighting a war on Sundays for that 45 minutes of time. But after it's over, we're all friends and family out there. It's a family concept, and when you break that dynamic, that culture, that's an issue for us. So be warned. We're a nice, good league, but our league, by number one, my friend, was we believe in a culture where you play with sportsmanship out there. This may not be a rule elsewhere, but it's a rule we have in here. Mind your P's and Q's. Treat your player play with respect out there. Play hard, play fun, play to win, but play fair.
We're not asking you to like everybody.
No, absolutely not. Respect is very important out there.
But respect them. Don't cross the line. Especially don't get to a point where things need to become more physical.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I think this is an isolated incident.
I think so too.
I think this is a very isolated incident, and we spent so much time on it because it's an isolated incident.
I want to make sure you understand why it was done in this case out there. And folks, again, thanks Jason as well too. Thanks to everybody else who helped out in this case out there. I'm sure I know the team that got penalized, they understand. They don't agree, they understand. I think most players understand what happened. I spoke to them already, so I appreciate that back as well too. Let's hope it's not, and we move on from it as well too. It's a lesson to be learned, and hopefully we can move on to better matches as well too. Thank Jason for a great weekly recap show.
Weekly recap show,
not a podcast. Weekly recap show.
Recap show.
Absolutely. Week 5, Super Bowl Sunday. This coming up week, Pro and X Games on tap here. Should be a fun week out there.
Are we going to have a weekly recap show for that?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Maybe we'll do it after if we have time. Quickly afterwards if we have time. For the bar out there. So it'll be great. Come out and we'll see the Pro and the X players this Sunday. The Rec players have a nice week off. Enjoy. Rest your bruises. Rest your egos. We'll see you on February the 9th as well too. For Jason Sticka, this is Sud saying so long as you're going to sit here and watch the Capitals take on the Sabres. Go Buffalo. Go Sabres.
Hey, I'll root for you, Caps fans. Go Capitals in this instance.
And later on tonight, his Blackhawks take on the lowly Calgary Flames.
I'm wearing the jersey of a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, Corey Crawford, ladies and gentlemen. Sud's not very high on Corey Crawford. I love Corey Crawford. Overrated.
Gotta go, guys. We got one more to go on the podcast. We'll see you next week. Have a great week off. We'll see you on the end. Take care, guys.